talking about workflows, the whole point about workflows is to make your life easier, make your sales reps' life easier, make administrators' life easier, and basically just find a way to make them, one, be more productive by doing less work, and more importantly, making sure they don't screw things up by automating what their action is. Because generally, automation has two main goals. One, make things easier and quicker, and two, making sure people aren't making human errors and mistakes, and just making sure the robot does exactly what you want it to do every single time. But it's an example of calculating two pieces of information that are completely in two different parts of the CRM, one in the calls module, one in the leads module, doing some math between when the call was completed and when the lead was created, and then subtracting the two times and finding out how long it takes for your sales reps to call people. And based on that, you can run a report or maybe do an aggregate of, calls over the past month or week and say this sales rep is taking, 4 hours to call a rep, and this sales rep is taking 4 minutes to call a rep. You should step your game up, and maybe you can create a game or, some incentive structure to make your sales reps call the leads even quicker once they come in. Another example that's pretty commonly asked for is whenever you're creating a record or making changes to a record in the CRM, whether it's an opportunity or a contact or an account, a lot of times in your CRM you have a lot of different information that could be related to the record. So for example, maybe you're creating an opportunity and you're changing the stage from identifying decision makers to proposal/price quote, right? So before you send out that quote and you change that stage, maybe we want to make sure that once somebody changes that stage, or if they try to change that stage, let's make sure that all the required information in that opportunity is already there, such as the dollar amount, maybe the updated time is within the past couple of weeks, maybe you want to make sure the contact has proper billing information, maybe you want to make sure the account has a proper website or a phone number. We're checking for a lot of information to make sure it's there and present. Whether it's accurate or not, I can't really control that one. The system's not that smart quite yet, but at a basic level, you want to make sure and check from different areas of the CRM, make sure the information is valid, and if it is valid, then you allow someone to go and make the next step. Another thing that's pretty common in the CRM, some people, before we had a subscriptions application, or maybe you just don't feel like spending money on a subscriptions application, or you just sell services that maybe renew every, let's say, month, 6 months, 1 year, you can automatically have potentials or deals or opportunities or whatever you call them in your system automatically be created at a certain time frame. So let's say once the opportunity, you have a closing date for when that deal actually closed, and then maybe you have two fields for service end date, when the warranty expires, or when your servicing of that deal is set to expire. And now maybe you have a check mark that says 6 months, or then you have another drop down that says the length of the term, 6 months, 1 month, 12 months, 18, 24, 48. And then based on that, we can say, X number of months of that drop down, based on how many months, let's go and create a potential, if the drop down was 6 months, then every 6 months it would go and create an opportunity down the line. This way, you're not creating them all at once, because if you created them all at once and you tried to run a report, your numbers would make it seem as if you made a lot more money than you actually did. So that's why you need to create the potentials 6 months down the line when you're actually getting that money in, or you're closing that deal for the next opportunity that's been closed. So you can create recurring potentials with different, varying amounts, varying closing dates, and still keep in the information that was actually there from the beginning on the original potential and have it brought over. Next thing. So calculating the total revenue from a customer. So right now in your CRM, if you're using leads and contacts and accounts, let's focus on contacts and accounts. If you want to find out which company you're doing business with has given you the most money over their lifetime, how would you do it? Customers are the people you sell to. Identifying who important customers are very important, so you can take care of them a little bit better. And how do you find out who an important customer is? It's clearly the person that's giving you the most money. And so you have to find a way to be able to identify quickly who an important customer is. And basically, if you run a report, which you should have been doing already, but if you weren't, if you run a report, you can tally up all the different potentials in the CRM. You can filter the report based on the stage being closed won, or whatever name of the stage you have for closed won business. And you do a calculation, and you can find out based on accounts, company ABC has given me 10 grand, company XYZ has given me 20 grand, and you'll get a full-blown report of this. And so you run the report. You can't really sort it very well. You can't really, do anything with it besides just seeing it in that report moment. And you'll be able to scroll up and down, find the highest value, and say, look, this is my most important customer. But taking that a little step further, If you want to do any kind of marketing to them, if you want to be able to create custom views on them, if you want to be able to add them to a Zoho campaign drip, drip campaign, maybe you want to assign them a tier level, like for example, a bronze customer, silver customer, gold customer, different things like that. You wouldn't be able to do because it requires the report to be able to identify who the most valuable customers are, but that information isn't actually stored anywhere in the CRM as an actual value that you can then use to filter, organize, or prioritize on. Identifying how far a contact is from you. So a lot of people, if you have field reps out there, or if you have a delivery service, or you're doing anything that requires you getting out of your chair, probably getting into your car and going to meet somebody face to face, then you probably want to know how far somebody is. Maybe you have different shipping rates based on their distance from your office. Different things like that. We can calculate that pretty easily using custom functions, which I'll show you an example of maybe. That says this is how far X place this customer is from my headquarters or from my office or from the nearest warehouse or distribution center that I may have is. Automatically send an invoice when a potential closes. That's kind of cool because every time you create a deal in the system and you go through the stages and a sales rep is like, yes, I won the guy's deal. We shook hands. He said he's going to give me money. So I updated that deal in the CRM. And then what? You didn't actually get the money. You just closed the deal in the CRM. That's not actually winning business because no money changed hands. So generally what ends up happening is you have to go to whatever invoicing tool you're using, and someone has to go and key in this information from this opportunity in order to generate the quote or the invoice, invoice at that point, to actually get the money out of the customer, right? So to prevent that manual entry process, you can automatically send the details of the opportunity that you're working on to whatever invoicing service you want to automatically bill the customer and send them that invoice automatically. And the very last one that you can do in the CRM, you can send text message reminders. So if anybody signed up for a one-on-one and you showed up maybe a little bit late or just right in time, you probably got a text message saying, hey, you got a one-on-one, come upstairs and don't be late. So there's two main segments of the examples that I just ran through. So you got manipulating CRM data, which is all the blue examples, and you got connecting external data, which is all the green examples. Basically, finding a way to interact, mold, calculate, mush, do whatever. You got the information in the CRM, but you can't always mix and match it and do whatever you want with it outside of trying to use a formula field. So instead, custom functions are essentially kind of like a way to make your own formula field or check for any valid information in the CRM before any actions happen. That there's no other workflow in the CRM that can possibly do this. And then the green one's connecting external data. Your CRM just has your sales information. You might want to connect that to any third-party service, maybe connect it to a email campaign software, to Eventbrite, anything else that your business is pretty much doing, any proprietary warehouse or inventory app you may have, anything. You can connect your CRM information with outside data to make it smarter. So that's custom functions. So custom functions are a way, or essentially you create a workflow, and instead of triggering an email, a task, or a field update, you're instead triggering a script. So a script is coding, so there are words that are formatted in a certain way, shape, or form. You got a little builder. We make it kind of easy for you. Lets you drag and drop stuff in there. Obviously lets you make pretty advanced automations, depending on your definition of advanced. This is the most powerful piece of the CRM. If you're not using this, you're not using the CRM to its full potential. I guarantee it. I've seen so many, probably thousands of CRM implementations that people have done, some of them good, some of them terrible. And the better ones generally can always be made even better with the use of custom functions because they're probably missing out on some process or some way to manage their information better or manage their workflow better in the CRM. So custom functions, I cannot stress this enough. If you think you hit the ceiling and you kind of figured out your entire CRM, there's still more to go with it. And if you're like, I'm never going to hit the ceiling, custom functions is a way to step up a couple notches and get closer to it. So custom functions in general, they can be used in 3 different places in the CRM. One is workflows, which is what Mandy covered. Basically, some action happens in the CRM, and based on that action happening, the workflow will get triggered or the script will get triggered. Other option is custom buttons. So custom buttons means you click something and then the script gets triggered, right? So sometimes you don't want something to happen automatically every time. Sometimes you want to click a button and then go update some information, or click a button and then send it to QuickBooks, or click a button and send it, or get new information from some third-party source and bring it inside. So it's just a manual way to trigger that script. And the last one is schedules. So you can basically create a schedule so it'll run, let's say, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and it'll execute this script at a regular interval without you having to do anything. So maybe every day you want to go and take the 10 deals that closed that day, or any number of deals that closed that day, and batch send them to QuickBooks at the end of the day, rather than immediately whenever the deal is closed. You can do that. Or if you want to say, at the end of every day, let me get the list of leads that have not been contacted, and let me go send them somewhere, right? Or reassign them, or maybe give them to a new owner, or send them to a new drip campaign because the sales rep wasn't able to contact them on the first day. A lot of different things that can happen that in a situation where you want it to happen, have a check or an action happen at a regular interval rather than without any kind of human intervention, like a workflow which requires a record action, or a custom button which requires you to manually click on something. How do we make our own? 4 steps to build a custom function. So first and foremost, you gotta know what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, you can't do anything, right? So once you know what you want to do at a high level, you probably want to run some automation, you want to have some action happen. The next thing you want to do is write it in pseudocode. So what pseudocode is basically step by step, as if you're explaining what you want to do to like a 3-year-old. So it's a way to basically write down what you want to have happen step by step by step, as detailed as humanly possible. So this way there's no way anything can go wrong, right? It's just a good way to identify any kind of holes you may have in the workflow, or any kind of like fallacies in the logic you may have. It's the best way to just write it out in that way. So that's kind of like your blueprint to your house. Then you actually go build the house, or actually build the workflow, and you convert line by line what you're building in pseudocode into actual script language, right? So you just do step by step, and we write the scripts. And the very last step is the easy part. You're associating it to a workflow. So whether it's being associated with a custom button being clicked, with the schedule being scheduled, or a workflow that's being automatically triggered, you're just picking where you're going to use it. And so here we're going to talk about calculating our most valuable customers. So pop into the CRM and come to my accounts tab. I got a bunch of different accounts up here. So I can click on one. Let's click on DriveShaft right here. So if I click on DriveShaft and scroll down, I can see that there is maybe a field here called total business that's blank right now. And if I come into my potentials, I can see that there's 2 deals that I currently got going on here. One is a $20,000 deal and a $50,000 deal. One is closed won, and one is still in qualification process. So what I want to have happen is maybe every time a deal is closed, I wanted to go and calculate what the total value of this, how much money that customer has basically given me. So I close that deal out, and I come down here, and let's come back to DriveShaft, and I'll scroll down, and look, now it says the total business is $70,000. Anybody know how the $70,000 came to be? 50 plus 20 is 70,000. All right. This is how you identify important customers, is by finding out how much money they've given you. And the only way you'd be able to do that is by doing something like this. Because, like I mentioned before, you can run a report on closed won deals, but it wouldn't actually store that information anywhere in this record. So maybe if I come back here to my list view, and I want to say my list view of accounts, and I want to say, show me everybody who's given me more than, so let's say the total value is over, let's say, $1,000. There's only one company, right? So if you want to know who your most valuable clients are so you can do any kind of action with them in the future, you have to have some kind of automation like this happen. And there's no way with normal workflows you'd be able to, right? So I can show you another example. They got no potentials right now, so I'll just scroll up and you'll see total business is blank as it is. And if we come in here and create a potential, they bought a hatch. The hatch cost $10,000. And we'll click on a date and pick a stage. We'll just pick something random for now and click save, right? So it's an open potential, still work in progress. Let's say I decided to buy the hatch because I needed it for my island. So I come in here and click on this and make it closed won. Click save. And now we're going to come back to, we'll come back to our company name. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Total business 10,000. Black magic, I swear. All right. So this is really important. And basically what we're doing, like I said, we're taking that information from every single opportunity that's associated with this contact, rolling it up, and having it posted in the account module. I'll break it down into the 4 steps we had before. So the first thing is knowing what you want to do. So what we want to do is anytime a deal is won, let's tally up all the previous deals that have been won and update a field in the account record, right? Sounds pretty straightforward, but we can get a little bit more granular than that. So if we get a little bit more granular, we start breaking it down into the pseudocode, right? So basically we know what the trigger is. It's a field update. Every time the stage field is updated to closed one, we're going to have this workflow trigger. And then the action is back here. It was pretty simple. Whenever a deal is closed, tally up all the past deals won. So focus on the second part, tally up all the past deals won. And so in order to tally up all the past deals won, first you have to search for all the opportunities that are associated with this specific account. You need to filter out the ones that are only closed won, because you don't really care about the ones that are still open and pending. And then once you filtered out those, you need to add up all the amounts. And then once you add up all the amounts, the last thing you need to do is actually go and update the original account with that new piece of information. So here's our 4 steps written in pseudocode, a little bit broken down a little bit more. So first step is searching for the potentials associated with an account. The next is going to be filtering at closed one. Then we're going to add up all the amounts, and then we're going to update the account with the new data. So back here, it's really only 13 lines, and 4 of them are taken up by parentheses, so those don't really count. It's like 9 lines really to do what we're doing here. But I'll break down each line line by line way. So line number 2, what we're doing is we're searching for every single potential in the CRM that's associated with a specific account. Now I'm using this thing called account ID. So anytime you click on an account, or pretty much any record in the CRM, you'll notice in the URL there's this long number there. That doesn't matter what you click on, a contact, an account, doesn't matter, always a number up there. The reason we have a number up there is basically there could be 15 James Shepherds in my CRM. And in order to identify the exact one that I want to, the CRM assigns a unique identifier called an ID to every record in the system. So this way I can say, I want this specific James Shepard, and the way I identified it is based on this unique ID that I had. So we basically come back. Line number 2, we search the CRM for every potential that has a specific account ID and give me all of them, right? So this is going to be, everything is going to be stored in this little thing called related potentials. Then the next step is line number 4. So we're going to say that for every single individual potential in this related list, if the potential stage is equal to closed one, then let's add the amount to itself. So we'll take the original amount that starts at 0, line number 3. Then we'll say take 0, or the new amount is going to equal 0 plus this opportunity's amount rolled up into 1. And then it loops over every single time for every single potential. So if there's three deals that are closed 1, it'll loop through it 3 times. If there's 2, it'll loop through it 2 times. It just depends on how many it finds in there. And then the very last thing is lines 11, 12, and 13, where it's basically just updating the field called total business with the amount that we calculated in here. Then we're updating the CRM record with the account, with that specific account ID that we identified at the very top, and we're updating it with this total business information piece. All right, so I'll show you a couple other examples just to run you. So like I mentioned at the very beginning, how long it takes you to call a lead is also included in here. So every time a lead is created and then a call is created afterwards, what we're going to do is we're going to go and add the main thing right here is line 14. If you're really looking, you're basically saying the call created time minus the lead created time. Then those 2 numbers are in like milliseconds. So you divide it by 60 minutes in a second, 60 seconds in an hour, 1,000 milliseconds in a second. That gives you that number. And then that'll tell you how long it took to call that contact, and it'll update it in the CRM. So you can run a report on there. Another example, like I said, recurring potentials. So basically every time a potential closes, if status field is, recurring is checkmarked or whatever, it'll automatically go and create a new one based on previous data. Another one that's super popular about that someone in a one-on-one asked me about is updating child contacts. So let's say let's take a different company instead of. So I've got this contact Shannon Rutherford in here. So here in the account, there's no shipping information. It's just blank. And if I scroll in, if I click on Shannon's name, her other street information and other address information is all blank, right? So a lot of times there's confusion that people have between storing information for a contact in an account that if a change happens at the account level, you want it to come down into the contact level, right? So let's come in here and give Shannon's company, Daddy's Money, an address right quick. So we'll just put 4141 Hacienda Drive, Pleasanton, CA 94588, USA. And I'll click save real quick. Right? So now if I come into Shannon's name, her address information is not updated, right? It never happens that way. There's no way to really do it. So because I have black magic skills, I come in here, I click this little button that says update contact records. Got a nice little message that says, woohoo, child contacts have been updated. I can close out of this little alert message. I'll click on Shannon's name down here. We'll scroll down. You know what we're going to see? We're going to see the address information, right? So now every time, in this case, there's only one contact associated with it, but if there's 5 contacts, 10 contacts, 50 contacts, you can update all their information coming down straight from the accounts module. So for reporting purposes, or if you're creating an opportunity associated to the contact, it all is unified and up to date. How many people have leads, convert the lead because they think they're going to sell something, and then turns out the deal doesn't go through, and now you got all these leads stuck as contacts, and you don't know what to do with them because they're not really contacts because they didn't actually do business with you. So let's say Shannon over here, she led me on a little bit. She said she was going to buy whatever AV pack is, but she didn't buy it, and turns out that the deal didn't go through, so I want to convert her back to a lead. So I made a fancy button up here for Shannon, and if I click on revert to lead here, it'll say the contact has been unconverted and created into a lead. You're not going to believe me now because now it says that the contact no longer exists. If I come into leads, Shannon is now a lead, and it brought in her email address, her name, and just the basic information. So I'll keep it really quick because they're really going to pull me off in a second. But phone number, email address, some basic fields that I brought in. Any piece of information you really want to have unconverted, you can easily do so. You can add more fields of information. Now, right now, none of the notes, none of the opportunities, none of that stuff came over, right? Everything's blank. If I wanted to and put a little bit more effort into it, I can bring all that right back into the lead. So now whenever you convert a lead thinking you're going to get business and then someone screws up that sale, you can unconvert that lead, bring it back into your leads bucket, and now have a clean group of contacts that are actually paying customers. And now, using what you learned before, you can identify who your most paying customers are because that's important in business. All right?